Hello queens, angels, and goddesses. Shout out to Mellow Mushroom and Okpa. Go subscribe to them. The links to their channels in the description. If you don't like my channel, then why are you on it? It was inevitable, Kageyama concluded as he wiped off the sweat off his forehead and took a deep breath. He straightened his back as he began to slow down on his warm-up jog. From all sides he could hear the rest of his new college team huffing and groaning. He settled his stance and stretched carefully his limbs as he felt another pair of eyes watching him. Kageyama knew his natural frown was creeping up as he made a quick turn for the water bottles. After 3 years in high school and a collective and rowdy team later, Kageyama knew the effect of his forced smile could impose. His awkward small chats got better by the years, but that only went so far. His temper and passion for volleyball still got him in trouble because it never did mix well with his competitive pride. Karasuno was aware of that side of him, and as he grew older that side didn't fade. People like Hinata and Tsukishima didn't help, and as college was turning out with his new volleyball team it looked like he couldn't escape his instinct to win. It started out fine with learning his new teammates' names and positions. Kageyama was more than equipped to be mature about it. There were enough familiar faces in between to make the transition a little easier in remembering his new team. It was sort of deceiving, the way Kageyama's first few days with his team were calm. They all had run down their schedules and basic information and it looked like he could get along with his team pretty well, but as Kageyama thought he could relax, something snapped. Apparently, there was a late teammate that came by one day near the end of practice and watched the team first, then introduced himself when there was a break. With his previous school being Shiratorizawa and his role as ace during high school, Kageyama knew the power behind of Goshiki Tsutomu. His stance was confident and solid. He had short black hair and as much as Kageyama could recall, he didn't impress him much at the time. His smile didn't have the same cockiness like Oikawa, but it also didn't have that same smug grin that irked Kageyama when Tsukishima used it against him. His attitude was like a mixture of Hinata's boisterous smiles and something that was near to his own loud comments while he played on the court, yet he still oddly enough had his own qualities when he was on the volleyball court. His athleticism was apparent with his toned body and confident air around him. Yet, besides his overwhelming attitude with volleyball, he was at least somewhat serious to not be over the top to hinder Kageyama's role. He was essentially a player that had qualities to be the best, and he was in many respects. It was like college was a new challenge for Kageyama to adapt and be continuously challenged by others. It was from that where Kageyama was dealt with the familiar stranger that had the same burning desire to win everything. His eyes swept over his and he couldn't help but mentally sigh as he noticed Goshiki immediately gave him a silent challenge. In that instant, Kageyama knew he didn't change much, just like Tsukishima predicted. At the time he registered the challenge, but he didn't bother to say anything out loud. The next day came and when the coach blew the whistle, Kageyama predictably charged ahead without bothering to listen to the coach and their assistances demanding for Kageyama and Goshiki to slow down and run with the rest of the team. The first lap was their warm-up. The second, Kageyama glared at his challenger as he grinned and took the lead for a short few seconds before Kageyama passed him and going to their third. In the end, it ended with both neither striking a full victory and a coach chastising them as the rest of the team left to the gym. And as the coach told them to cool off, Kageyama took that opportunity to listen to his own breathing and walked to the gym. From behind, his new teammate spoke, "I see you got faster since the last time we've played against each other." Kageyama drank from his water bottle before answering. "I could say the same to you." The tension and rivalry between them was easy to notice. Every day Kageyama could count on Goshiki to push him to run, jump and serve faster and stronger. And as time passed by, Kageyama couldn't help but notice the difference between his rivalry with Goshiki and Hinata's during high school. While he had fun with Hinata, there was something unspoken about the way Kageyama watched and admired Goshiki. He grew to understand the strong positive attitude that Goshiki held to the point of becoming too comfortable around him. He noticed that Goshiki never failed to grab Kageyama's attention as they argued about volleyball. Hours would tick and Kageyama always finished his days with a grin as Goshiki would propose a new challenge the next day. Besides the rest of his teammates, Kageyama found himself to crave moments with Goshiki alone. He liked the way he raced the tracks every morning and listened to Goshiki's feet running alongside his. He liked how he served the ball on the court and witnessed Goshiki use all his strength to pulverize it to the ground and creating this loud smack echoing the gymnasium. He felt like the longer he spent with Goshiki, Kageyama would try to memorize the small details about Goshiki that made his heart flutter inside his ribcage. His throat began to dry faster, his ears would suddenly feel hotter as his heart drummed loudly, making it difficult for Kageyama to concentrate when a teammate tried to conserve with him. The few times when their skin made contact, it always managed to make his cheeks reddened. It was a fire. That was the best way to describe how Kageyama's heart melted. His brain would occupy with Goshiki's grins, his stupidly attractive bangs that hung above his wide readable eyes that pulled Kageyama in, his haughty laugh when he won a challenge, and so much more. The list grew and grew that sometimes he wondered himself if he would ever be cured from his infatuation with Goshiki Tsutomu. But he would wake up and by morning practice his cheeks would color instantly as Goshiki would wager a bet. Tsukishima was definitely the first to realize the attraction Kageyama had and opted to stay silent, hoping he wouldn't bug him and instead go to someone more inclined to listen like Yamaguchi or Yachi. But as Kageyama sighed and brooded hours on, Tsukishima's patience was wearing off faster as he was stuck with him as his roommate. Staring at your notebook won't help you finish your homework. You need to actually write on it. It was mid-afternoon and both of them were in their living room doing their own respective homework, or at least Tsukishima was until he noticed the lack of writing on Kageyama's part. After a couple of minutes of only hearing his own hand scribble and Kageyama's sighing, Tsukishima was honestly getting tired of getting texts from Yamaguchi, Hinata and Yachi asking about Kageyama. They all knew he was not the sensitive one out of the bunch, but as his roommate and reluctant friend he became Kageyama's unofficial babysitter. They did get closer after 3 years together in Karasuno's volleyball team, but they weren't best friends. Still, that didn't mean he was going watch this train wreck burst wholeheartedly. Kageyama didn't move an inch as he attempted to jot down a few words. His pencil scribbled lazily as he muttered under his breath. Tsukishima was about to say something until Kageyama finally sought advice, because after months of mindlessly competing with Goshiki, Kageyama cracked. While it was uncharacteristic of him to sought advice from Tsukishima first before the rest of the gang, he felt like maybe Tsukishima would be some help today. He didn't know why, but it felt okay to slip in about his frustration and confusion revolving Goshiki into vent. Tsukishima though had many snarky side commentaries, kept them in bay as he listened instead. So then that's all? Just vent and do nothing about it? Tsukishima had listened to everything and was annoyed at the fact that Kageyama would not be straightforward with his feelings to romance than the attention he gave to volleyball. It was understandable, but in Tsukishima's mind it was a waste of time to helplessly do nothing about it. Kageyama's eyes frowned with his mouth. His pout grew as he spoke. And when did I expressly say I wanted to look stupid and ask him out? Tsukishima rolled his shoulders as he walked away the conversation. Practically every day. You're still easy to read. I'm not. R2. I'm not. He wasn't completely sure on the date when Goshiki confronted him. All he could remember was when Goshiki walked straight to him and asked for a race. Mid-run, Kageyama felt Goshiki eyeing him closer than usual, and before he could comment Goshiki spoke, "Loser pays for lunch." As he sprinted, Kageyama couldn't help but notice something was up. His voice was a little off, but that didn't stop him from winning by a landslide. And as they cooled down, Goshiki still looked preoccupied as they walked over to their water bottles. Kageyama didn't know what to say or do but bluntly asked what was wrong. Goshiki took one last look at him before wiping his face. "Do you like me?" Kageyama frowned. "What?" Goshiki repeated his question. "Do you like me?" "I guess." Kageyama didn't know what to do as they stayed quiet for a couple of seconds. "Why are you asking all of a sudden?" "I like you too." "Oh." They continued to walk back with the rest of the gym. "Does that mean the lunch I'm buying is a date?" Nothing dramatic changed after that. They still competed with each other whenever an opportunity came. Whether it was in the volleyball court, or getting in line at the cafeteria, Kageyama and Goshiki's natural instincts kicked in. While it was slow business with hand-holding and clumsily chased peaks, completion was in their blood. They kept a record when one of them was romantic and if they could outdo each other. Holidays, birthdays and eventually anniversaries piled on as their relationship solidified over the years. It was in a way unavoidable how Kageyama couldn't escape his nature of competition, but it didn't matter much. Because in some shape and form he was able to meet someone who was similar and understood him and enjoyed the aspect of fighting and winning. And while winning wasn't the most important thing in the world, there was a joy in having someone who didn't tire of challenges like him. Warning: this fanfiction does not belong to me, neither does the fan art. Credits to the original artist and author to the fan art and the fanfiction. Haikyuu does not belong to me either. Well, by children smiling face with hearts.